Welcome to our fireside chat on all things young people and end of life, and in particular, Dying with Dignity Victoria's Young Ambassador Program. My name is Danielle Jacobs. I'm a psychologist and coach, and today I'm wearing my very proud board member of Dying with Dignity Victoria hat to host this important conversation. In context, in relation to Dying with Dignity Victoria, I wear a couple of other hats. I am, by the skin of my teeth, a young ambassador also, and am the lead of Dying with Dignity Victoria's Canine Ambassador Program and fur mum to two of our canine ambassadors and therapy dogs, Ollie and Mia. Today, I am incredibly excited to be joined by three superhumans, all young ambassadors. Each of these very special humans has both individually and collectively, as part of our Young Ambassador Program, made more positive ripples than I can count. So let me introduce you to my superhuman colleagues and partners in good. Welcome to Tara McDonald.
Hello.
Brennan Bast.
Right.
Eve Crotty. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I know that we're all looking forward to having this conversation. Before I dive into our planned chat, just some additional context for those of you who are signing in today and wondering about the significance of this event. Today is the World Federation Right to Die Day. It's a day designed to provide us all with the space to reflect and promote something deeply human, and that is the right to make choices about how we live and how we die. It's a day to honour our humanness and the importance of compassion, autonomy, and dignity that every person deserves in life and in their death. So today, our conversation is going to be all about end-of-life related topics. But far from feeling down about this sometimes heavy topic, I know that I speak for all of the young ambassadors on this call when I say it's one we're really excited to have. In advance, I will warn you that you may see passion, zest, enthusiasm, and fair warning that you'll be hearing deeply personal stories from all of us. We are here today with the sole purpose of leaving you better than we found you today and making positive ripples in relation to a topic that has touched each of us profoundly. And I'm going to pick on Tara first. Tara, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. To help our local and international audience joining us understand a bit more context about who we are, can you give us a brief summary of Dying with Dignity, who we are and what we do?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So Dying with Dignity Victoria is actually quite an old organisation. It was founded in 1974, and when it was originally formed, it was looking at establishing law reforms and those types of things for voluntary assisted dying and also end-of-life care. But since then, it's kind of morphed a little bit, and we still do look a lot at that legislative stuff, but we also are really focused on education and also providing that support to people that are coming towards the end of their life. And that might be helping them to write an advanced care directive. It might be witnessing their voluntary assisted dying application. So we've kind of moved a little bit, but over the last sort of, I suppose, month or so, we've been really, really busy working on the legislative reforms that we're trying to accomplish in Victoria to bring Victoria I suppose, back into line with the majority of Australia when it comes to voluntary assisted dying laws.
Excellent. That's a beautiful summary, Tara. Thank you. In relation to the Young Ambassador Program, perhaps you can tell us a bit about that group and how they ended up being the group that they are today.
Yeah, sure. So the Young Ambassadors, or the YAs, as we often call ourselves. So I suppose for context for people, you're often going to hear the words VAD or VAD or YAs through this. So that's what we're talking about if you do hear that. So the YAs is a group of younger members that are essentially people that are in their 40s or younger. Thank goodness, because otherwise I would not be a young ambassador. And yeah, we just make it. Anyway, and what we're focused on is being the voices of younger people, and also looking at what they consider when it comes to death or dying. We know that younger people are experiencing death in a different way to older Australians. And so we like to shine a light or a perspective on perhaps what we need to be thinking about or how we need to support people that are in that younger age bracket that are experiencing some type of, I suppose, experiencing some type of end of life event, whether it be themselves or a loved one or perhaps something else.
Thank you. And I know we've got a fantastic video on the young ambassadors, so we might take that
Yeah,
opportunity to quickly play that now.
absolutely.
The Young Ambassadors are a group of young people who believe in the power of choice. Choice in how we live and choice in how we leave this world. We strive to create a world where every person has access to quality end-of-life care options, including voluntary assisted dying.
We're a group of young people that want to encourage open and honest conversations about end of life.
I believe everybody has the right to live a good life and to also have a good death.
My connection with Dying with Dignity Victoria is a pretty personal one. My mum passed away many years ago now. With her illness, we knew that that was terminal, that we knew that there was a certain time frame that she had to live. So she was extremely proactive in understanding what her options were. Although it's not going to be the end result that we wished for, she's ultimately going to have choice, which gave us comfort.
I joined the Dying with Dignity Youth Ambassadors quite recently. My fiance, Alex Blaine, used the voluntary assisted dying medication on the 5th of January 2021. Alex cared so much about dying with dignity. Everyone should have that end of life experience.
We want to be better at listening to understand the issues people face, advocate for change, inform people about the choices available to them, connect people to services and supports, encourage conversations, and grow the movement of young people advocating for end-of-life care issues.
It's extremely rewarding being connected to the group. We've all got our own jobs, but we still come together, think about what we can do to make a change, particularly when it comes to awareness for younger people.
The Young Ambassadors are the people that are going to take this amazing organisation into the future. We're here for the long haul, and we're here to try and help government understand what younger people want in the future and in the present.
As young people, we think, we're immortal, nothing can get to us, but unfortunately, that's so not true. I hope that we can continue conversations, normalise death and grief, because as we age, having that knowledge and choices is really powerful.
Join us in our mission to make quality end-of-life choices a reality for all people. Together, we can create a future where every voice is amplified and every choice is respected.
Too, but I think it's fair to say that young people do experience end of life differently. It's not that they don't have things in common with other age groups, but when you look at their experience, there are some different things about their view and experience. And I'll summarize a few of the key points, and then I'm going to throw over to you, Eve. But one of the things that we notice is that the emotional and psychological impact of facing end of life is very different often for young people, because there are complications of feelings of unfairness that they haven't had the opportunity that other people may have had with a longer life. There are often unfulfilled aspirations or goals, unfinished goals. And in many ways, in my experience, sample of one, they're holding heightened emotional distress for the people around them. And I think that can be unique. They are often also faced with not necessarily always having access to age-appropriate services. And there are times where young people, and Brennan, you would have seen this, end up in residential care and settings that are not aligned to the way in which they're used to living, or perhaps the way that they want to die as well. And often these young people have complicated lives in that they have potentially young children, they have work and business obligations, mortgages, which are an extra layer of how do you manage mortgage payments when you've just been diagnosed as being terminally ill. When we think about, when I reflect on the conversations that we've had with the young ambassadors locally, nationally, and internationally, it was interesting, Eve, reflecting on our conversations where your perspective to end of life conversations and preparation was totally different because you're a carer. And so whereas many young people think about who don't have the experience of being a carer or a direct loved one of someone who is facing a terminal illness, young people often think about traumatic incidences, so car accidents or strokes, and in terms of a life-changing event rather than a progressive illness. But it's your perspective as a carer is totally different to that. And from the perspective of the taboo that happens with young people and how the depths of the discomfort that people feel in having conversations with young people about end of life, and just even in my own sample of one, that the girlfriend that passed away, there was people meant it with it love in their heart, but they would use language like keep fighting, your baby needs you. And there were periods with her and others where I've seen people be so uncomfortable in the circumstances that they don't visit the young person who is passing away. And that person is by themselves or with a restricted pool of support because other people are so uncomfortable and don't know what to say. So there's this taboo. Myself and another young ambassador had with a group of funeral celebrants, and they were talking about, and they are, credit to them, wanting to upskill so that they can better support the family members of people who are in palliative care and may pass away, and or people that are doing living wakes and things like that. And it was really interesting because they were asking myself and this other young ambassador about the experience of death, and they were pulling on, they were mature women, and they were pulling on their handful of experiences, personal experiences, but they were also clearly pulling from media and movies, and some of the things that they were that they brought up just made this other young ambassador and I think, wow, this is something particularly for young people where you're thinking that as a generalization, many young people haven't had the life experience, and that's a blessing to not have lost people close to you or not have experienced that trauma. But because of their age, they may not have been exposed to issues of death and dying, and that means that they're being informed by media. And so that's a blessing and a curse. A question, an open question to each of you. How accurately, in your experience as a young person, do you think that the media is portraying death, and what implications are there? What do you want young people to know about your perspective of death?
I could start off because I read this question and I was like, oh, what media examples can I pull in regards to a perspective from voluntary assisted dying? And the two films, there's a third one, but I haven't seen it, so I can't talk about it. But the two films I have seen in regards to voluntary assisted dying that have portrayed death utilizing voluntary assisted dying and conversations around death within the perspective of voluntary assisted dying to be, I wouldn't say accurate, but authentic. And that was Blackbird, which was a 2019 film that Mum and I actually watched prior to her passing away, but I fell asleep halfway through. So I've rewatched it since, and that centered around a family who came to do Christmas in someplace in America and the US, and this the matriarch of the family decided to access voluntary assisted dying. I don't believe it was legal, but decided to access, I guess, a form of it, um, whilst in the presence of her family, whilst her family was staying at this beach house. So that was one that Mum and I watched together. And I know my mother, she really liked the how death was spoken about in that movie, because it, at least the character, Susan Sandrum, the character um, sort of spoke quite closely to what Mum thought about death and about end of life and the progression of illness. So there was that film, and then the other film that I wanted to mention was The Room Next Door, which was an English language Spanish film, um, which has, oh my gosh, I forget who it has in it, but I saw it in theaters last year, and after Mum's death, and it's about this lady who reconnects with a friend and decides to go, it's also set in the US, and decides to go and rent some type of like Airbnb or whatever in the woods, and wants the friend to be there because she wants someone else to be there when she passes away. And the conversations that that movie had, at least the opportunity for conversation it had, um, I think it was, again, I wouldn't say sorry, I wouldn't say accurate, but it seemed authentic and almost realistic, because it gave a realistic um, realistic impression of voluntary assisted dying, what voluntary assisted dying does, but also um, end of life, and what end of life may look like for some, what people's interpretations of end of life can be, and what that can look like, and how it's skewed and swayed. But also to see it on media and to see it in a film, I thought just I I would say those two examples, the only two that I've really seen that have given a semi genuine account of voluntary assisted dying, but also terminal illness, and then taking back that control over your life, whether voluntary assisted dying is legal or not in the jurisdiction that it's portrayed in. Those are the two that I wanted to bring up with this question, because I thought that everyone has to watch them. I thought they were very good films, at least coming from my perspective. But apart from that, death and dying, it's like death and dying and illness, that it's as relevant to us, it's relevant to young people as it is to any other age group, whether it be underage or say elders in our community. It's as relevant to all of us. And unfortunately, at least from, if I can speak for myself from growing up, not including the carers, more so what I would see in media, is that conversations or topics around death or dying would be mostly centered around, say, an older person passing away, like a grandparent or something, but usually follow they're old, they go into palliative care because they're old, and then they pass away, instead of what illness may look like and the suffering associated with that, but also the developments and the changes in dynamics, whether it be family dynamics or professional dynamics that come along with the development of illness and the reality of illness as well. So it those two examples were very good. However, I can't think of any other example that has portrayed, at least from, I've only really got one experience of death directly, and that was with my mother. But that I can relate to my experience or understanding of death, that I can't really pinpoint any other example within the media that has portrayed it in a slightly realistic or genuine way.
Thank you, Eve. And I think I speak for everyone when I say we're going to go and look up those two movies. Brennan, maybe I can throw to you. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I've got one more film recommendation.
Oh, excellent.
Mar Adentro. It's
Okay.
another Spanish film. And that also kind of, I don't know, I feel like it covers a really kind of multi-point view on dying, using assisted dying. And it's very beautiful, very sad, obviously. Yeah, I think in terms of like the media portrayal of dying, you sort of, I guess, I don't know, it depends on what sort of media portrayal, we're talking surrounded by family and they slowly slip away, drift off comfortably. I would say that occasionally, yeah, it can be like that, you know, if it's all done well and it goes to plan and you know you've got a loving, supportive family and everyone's very organized and all the rest of it. Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, you know, I think like Tara said, you know, if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. But I think it's similar to deaths in a way, and you know,
Yeah.
family structures and the way that things sort of can happen. Yeah, you know, if you've seen one death and one way to do it, you've probably seen one way to do it. So I think I don't know, it's quite tricky to sort of, yeah, I guess the way that the media portrays it. Um, I suppose it depends on whether you're watching the news or if you're watching a movie. Um, but no, I think it can just be so different. And I think
Yeah.
kind of like what you were touching on earlier around sort of the way that when you're growing up, you're not really involved in death, and you know, all of a sudden someone's there and then they're sort of gone and you don't see them anymore. I think that's, you know, particularly a Western sort of lens on death. And you know, I kind of had that experience as well. But I think at some point it sort of shifts to all of a sudden you are that person that is involved in the death and is involved in the process and is involved in, you know, what happens. And I think that we really miss a lot of that middle ground. Sorry, I feel like I've gone a little bit off topic, but you
No,
know, like I
I
said,
think it's such an interesting and relevant perspective because we go from viewing it in movies and in media to being involved in it. And I think you're totally right. As well as your comment about if referring to Tara's comment about dementia, and my sample of one viewing many deaths that I've been a part of, both as a volunteer in palliative care and for friends and family, each one of them has been different. And it has absolutely the reality of that. When I think about how media is, how young people are developing their ideas about what death is like, it makes sense that they're pulling on, you know, they're probably not watching the Spanish films. Looks like the Spaniards are ahead of the mark here, but I suspect that if we take the Australian audience, for example, they're not up with what the Spaniards are doing in this space. And so I suspect that there is a more narrowed Western approach to which I think simplifies death because I think it's more complicated. It's very different for different people. It's different depending on the parties that are involved. And I think that one of the takeaways for young people, I love your comment, Brendan, about you go from watching it and from a distance to somehow being a part of it, whether it's your partner or your parents. And so I think that that makes all the difference. And young people need to get in that space and be more prepared, I think.
yeah, absolutely.
What that's like. I think that's a really great point. And the young people there, you only know what you know. And so I think that the Young Ambassadors program has the opportunity, and the young ambassadors in particular have the opportunity to fill some gaps for people. And just like the conversation that Zoe, a young ambassador, and I had with the funeral celebrants, to say, yes, that may be correct that people have this last minute rally and ideas of wisdom to give to their family and then pass away. That may be the case. And I've seen lots of alternatives to that. And so just having that conversation so that, because I think if for young people especially, well, for anyone actually, if you expected a certain experience and then it wasn't that, I think it can add to your distress. I think just giving ourselves more room to have different experiences and to know what those options might be of benefit to young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I forgot, I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, I think just I don't know. I think death is really yeah, kind of again what you were talking about. It's one of those things that we don't like to think about it, and really with kind of the facilities that we have and the services that we have, particularly in Australia, a lot of the time we don't have to think of it. It sort of it can become very out of sight, out of mind if you want it to be. Um, and it's only that when all of a sudden you are forced to sort of, I guess, be the central organizer of, I guess, someone's, or I guess, being, maybe you become a decision maker or you become a power of attorney or something along those lines. Yeah, all of a sudden, yeah, we're just thrust into this position that we've spent so much time sort of trying to not know about.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, if we can sort of just get ahead of the sort of get ahead of that phone call a little bit, just so that when something does inevitably happen, we're not trying to make decisions when we're also likely very emotional, and we're if something does happen to your family, or if something does happen to a loved one, that you're kind of responsible for you're responsible for what happens around their care. Yeah, try if you can. I guess, sorry, I'm sort of again going off track, but if we can have those conversations early about what people sort of do and don't want, then when the time when you get that phone call, or when when you need to have that conversation because you're at the doctor's office or whatever it may be, that you're not trying to scrabble and make these decisions kind of in a context of even just what the being swayed by suggestions from doctors when you're in like a really emotionally charged state. Their interest is in helping us and doing as much as we can within the confines of medical technology, which is it's amazing. It's beautiful. Like the progress we've made with technology is it blows my mind on a daily basis. But I think a lot of the time, they all come with consequences. They all come with risks, and I think it's really important that you understand what risks you're willing to take individually, and what potential consequences you're willing to sort of carry on with, regarding what decisions you have to make.
You may have gone rogue on us, Brennan, but you have beautifully introduced the next video. So we're going to play a quick video on conversations about end-of-life wishes.
My name is Diana, and Roy and I are husband and wife.
My name is Anita, and John is my dad.
My name's John. I'm Quivy's husband.
So Roy gets to go on a trip of a lifetime. Where does he want to go?
I'd say Bora Bora.
Well, I definitely want to go with Bora Bora.
What food could Anita not live without?
Probably curry.
Anything Asian?
He couldn't live without a lot of food.
And what about you? What food could you not live without?
Probably fruit in general.
Probably chocolate.
Just
What? Anita asking me, so what's this about? So I don't know.
If you can think about a moment where you pushed through a hard time together, Can you describe that?
At school, when she was being bullied, we had to see some counselling.
Just talking me through it and helping me get through it. Kind words and lots of hugs.
For me, it was probably the time when we were first trying to have our first child, I guess. We went through IVF and things like that. Becoming parents is something that we all hoped would come naturally, but it didn't to us initially, and we worked through that together.
Roy's hurt in a car accident. He needs a breathing tube for the rest of his life, and he'll never speak again. Would you consent to this?
Well, yeah, I would, yeah.
No, I wouldn't. Definitely not. I don't think I would want to burden anyone with that, so I'd rather not. Yeah.
Anita had 3 months to live. Treatment would give her an extra 2 months, but she would never see outside of a hospital. Would you consent to treatment?
Yes, this was a difficult one, this one. 2 months, it's just 1 week, 2 months, any time.
Not at all. No.
That's unexpected.
I don't want to be kept in a hospital for forever.
John has had a massive stroke. Does he want a feeding tube to keep him alive, even though he'll never talk again?
No.
No, I don't. It's very important to me to be happy and functional in my life. No, I wouldn't want that to happen.
Roy's in the last stages of terminal cancer and his heart stopped. Does he want CPR?
Probably not. I don't think you would, no, I don't know.
So how do you both feel after answering those questions, and why?
It felt quite confronting in a way. But
You think about it and you talk about it just very lightheartedly, but I don't think anyone really puts a lot of thought and serious thought into it.
No.
Why do you think that some couples don't talk about this?
It's not a pleasant subject. I mean, nobody wants to dwell on the fact that they're going to die one day, and possibly in adverse or difficult circumstances.
So if I was to tell you that advanced care planning is essentially a conversation that helps your loved ones know what medical treatment to choose for you if you had a sudden event, what would you think about it now?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important, not just for yourself, but more so for your family, I think.
Definitely have to have a bit more of a talk, and it's not just about the two of us. We also have kids and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so there is a bit we need to consider. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we just saw the Love Is Not Enough video. I'll throw open to the group. What are your personal takeaways as a young person, as a young ambassador from that video, and what you think young people should know?
I actually watched this video a few weeks ago, and it prompted me to have a conversation with my mum. And I think even in having that conversation, it can be quite confronting, but it's also, there's a lot of options to think about, when you start filling out when you start thinking about all of the theoreticals, where you start thinking about all the kind of the nitty gritty. It's, I don't know, it's a great conversation to have. But there is a lot to it, and you really have to kind of put some directed thought into it. Was my I guess main takeaway. It's not as sort of, I don't know, turn me off if this happens. There's kind of it's a whole flow, it's a whole spreadsheet.
Particularly in the context of that part of our earlier conversation about young people expecting an incident. Those who are not carers are expecting an incident. And so the terms that can be used, like you're saying, Brennan, switch me off, don't resuscitate, but underneath that, there's so much detail. And I guess, especially for young people, even if an incident were to happen, there's so much more that needs consideration in decision making, because the death is not part of age. You're not dealing with a 98-year-old, you might be dealing with a 25-year-old. And so I think, especially for young people as young ambassadors, supporting people to move away from motherhood statements and the vibe, and understanding, especially as a young person, for your loved ones, whether you're looking after parents or you're thinking about your brother, sister, partner, that is not sufficient detail to ensure that they're, one, their wishes, and two, that you can be of assistance if and when they need you to be that person in their life. Anything else, Tara or Eve, that you would add to that?
I think it's important to remember that emotions are a really, really, really strong thing that all humans have. And when you are being asked to make really tough decisions for somebody, it is hard to make those decisions without having emotion and without having your desires sitting in the backs of your brain. And so we saw in that video that there was one of the people that she was like, oh no, they stay alive. And he's like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to also think about, how can you reduce the emotion and actually show your loved ones real love and respect, and actually remove that burden from them by making the decisions for them of what you essentially want. When you organize, do you want to be a donor? Do you want to be an organ donor? Do you want to give away? All that kind of stuff. Do an advanced care directive too. Because one of the best gifts, when they say, one of the best gifts that you can give is your organs, cool, absolutely. But one of the best gifts that you actually can give the people that are most important to you is permission to grieve you as somebody that's being lost, rather than someone that they have to let go of because there's no decision in place.
It's an excellent point, Tara, and just reflecting on my own conversations with my parents about advanced care planning and advanced care directives. I had tried for about 20 years to get them to do this, but despite volunteering in this field for so long, they kept saying, just switch me off, and it didn't matter how much I talked to them about it, they were not engaging on it. And then I ended up saying to them recently, just to be clear, I'm going to be really distressed in executing this for you if I do not have this detail from you. I'm asking for your help. Even if you feel like I've got it, it will mean that I will be less distressed in a moment where I'm emotionally fragile if I know what you want. And so,
100%.
Yeah, and it was interesting that that's what got them across the line, to give me sufficient detail that we could action. So I think
it's your last gift.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. So the takeaway, sorry, Eve, I interrupted you.
You're right. No, you're okay. I would say really what stood out to me was the point on one of the slides at the end, is that if you don't tell them, how will they know? And it's something, it's a conversation at least that you don't really have with others in your life unless you have had, say, a close personal experience with terminal illness and death. And it's a conversation that needs to happen amongst anyone, really. It needs to happen amongst yourself and your next of kin, or someone who you would entrust, because as we've mentioned, if you become emotionally heightened during a circumstance like what we're talking about, if someone becomes incapacitated for whatever reason and needs someone there who is not incapacitated to make the decisions for them, it it's a highly emotional state that you're in. And it can be really confusing, especially if you do not have this in place. I reflected earlier. This is when I texted you, Danielle, because I was like, I haven't thought about this in years. I remember when I found out that my mum had a do not resuscitate in place, which is legal order. I believe as soon as medical personnel find out, they don't touch her, pretty much. And when I found out, I wrote little notes, and when I found out about it, I saw this little sheet of paper and I was really confused with all these acronyms. So sat mum down and she explained to me quite calmly what it was and what it meant. And it, like, she explained that she did not consent to resuscitation. She did not want to be resuscitated and potentially have any further complications from her illnesses. That was a big concern for her. If she had to be resuscitated, she had some heart issues, so there was a likelihood that she would need to be if she had a heart attack, as an example. The way she was talking and how relaxed she was about it, made me comfortable to learn about it, but also I could tell that it's something that she never wanted to have to be in a position to tell me that she wanted to put that in place. It's something that I'm sure a parent never ever wants to make a decision for and to then eventually to tell their child, but to keep me in the loop and to keep me understanding and to keep me aware of what was happening. It's something that she felt that eventually she needed to tell me because I was busy snooping around in all her documents. But it's something that before she told me, I wouldn't have known what to say. If I was the person there with her in resus and emergency when they're going, hey, what do we do? I would have had absolutely no idea what to do. And that's part of why an advanced care directive is so important, because again, you're so emotionally volatile and you're so heightened in these, because you're full of adrenaline, really. You can be so heightened in these circumstances. And I know for myself personally, from many a hospital emergency experience, adrenaline truly does take over and it can inhibit your decisions for the person that you love, because you are deciding these things out of love and out of love for that person, and out of wanting that person back or wanting that person with you. And it's extremely difficult in those circumstances to be able to fully realize the picture of the person who's being affected directly by this and their wishes and all that. And so I think the video that Advanced Care Planning Australia made was really good to be able to point out, well, if you don't tell them, how on earth are they going to know? But then also to point out that it's a conversation that's not really taken seriously by many people, or even young people as well, because in part, it's not commonly perceived that it's a young person conversation to have.
Yeah.
I think even if you don't want to have the conversation, just write it down somewhere and tell somewhere where it is.
Yeah, if you're able, yeah.
So I'll give you a little
But do it legally. Do it on the proper paperwork. You get your GP to sign it.
The form's online for Australians. The form's online.
That's it. In the back of your diary, it doesn't
Go to
count.
Dying with Dignity Victoria. You can find all the paperwork you need.
This will make you feel sorry for my group of friends and family team, but you may or may not know this, but I had obviously been working in volunteering in this space for a long time, and yet people say yes, 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 even friends and family, but they still haven't got an advanced care directive. Even though
wills are the same. Wills are the same. People don't have wills.
That's right. So what I did, I wrote out my medical treatment decision maker form, signed properly. Brennan, you'll be delighted to know it's binding. And
healthcare staff around Australia.
Yeah, and the advanced care planning document, got all that signed, and I put it in Word documents and I emailed it to my best friends, all my family, and several others that I knew were facing these sorts of things. And they got back to me immediately. So this was my plan, not because they were necessarily the medical treatment decision makers, but I thought, stuff it. You need
to someone, and then someone will go, I've got this.
So what ends up happening was they all contacted me and said, I had no idea that you needed to think these things through. I thought that I just had to tell Brennan to flick the switch. And so it was interesting, just as an experiment, that resulted in all of those people and their families actually filling in the form. So they wrote over mine, but I just thought it was really interesting. So actually, from a young person perspective, maybe the opportunity is take the lead, fill your form in, think this through as a young person and share it and email it to others, because sometimes that's what it takes to get people involved. So it was it's probably going to put people off joining my family friend circle, but anyway, they taught you in multiple ways. But I know that back to the young ambassadors, and I'm sure that I'm not the only young ambassador to have tortured their family and friends in this way. It's a hazard being involved in all these things. That young people have a different experience of end-of-life planning, like we've been discussing. So the problem with young people is that there's no particular trigger to get involved in advanced care planning. So often it's not like it's attached to getting a license or anything like that. There's no natural trigger. There is quite an academic separation for most people in terms of, apart from those young people that are unfortunate enough to have a terminal illness, this distance from death keeps it at the door, and it's not something that we need to, it's more like a academic idea. There's a perception from young people that often advanced care planning and directives are for people at the end of life, at a time of death. There is, I understand from our work and anecdotally, an misunderstanding by young people about their ability to access voluntary assisted dying, as though it is an option that I would like, so that is what I will get access to, which is not. There are very strict eligibility criteria there. So young people's understanding of their ability to access and ask for that, and that seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding. And I think, like we've touched on before, unless young people have had direct experience as a carer or they've lost someone in their circle, their thinking about advanced care planning and advanced care directives is about sudden incidences. They find it hard to think about progressive conditions like motor neurone or Parkinson's or things like that. And the reality is for young people also that as they journey through life, they're going to need to be revising these documents, because there will be times where they are partnered, then they might be unpartnered, they might have children. There are other considerations there. So it's not a once you've done it, it's over sort of thing. I think that young people definitely approach end-of-life planning differently.
I think also young people are just, where people are focused on career progression, buying a house, buying a partner, traveling. There's so many other things that people are thinking about. We don't get our bowel test screening until we're 50.
It's something to look forward to,
right? That's in Australia. So for those that from overseas, it's in Australia when you turn 50.
Away from it, yeah.
When you turn 50, you get a bowel test.
It's double my age,
right?
It's over double my age.
Calm down. So there's different things, and it's
so how have we? Eve is decades away from her bowel testing kit. How do we engage people like Eve and like Brennan and others who might be listening? Tara, maybe you can tell us how have Dying with Dignity Victoria engaged this group of incredible young people with mixed experiences? Let us in on the secret sauce.
Well, we have a very, 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 very passionate president who will see a young person or anybody that doesn't have grey hair and just go, "Can you come and be a young ambassador?" So we're very lucky to have Jane. Shout out to Jane. I think that people don't need to join a group to be a young ambassador. It helps. But all you actually need to do is be brave enough to have a conversation about this and be an ambassador for yourself, and also be an ambassador for your loved ones. And being a young ambassador doesn't mean that you are only talking about younger people that are facing death. And I think that's something that has really evolved through the young ambassadors, that we have started to really sort of drill into that sort of side of things of how do we support people too. So I think the takeaway is just talk. Talk about death. Talk about your fears. Talk about funny things. And just, maybe talk about bowel tests as well. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. But you know what I mean? Just talk about it.
When the time comes, it's important.
It's important, right? Because
it's not the
otherwise
takeaway though.
It's not the takeaway. But it's, it's just talk about it. It's not, one of the other board members said, back, last millennia, as Eve would say, everyone talked about death and no one talked about sex. Now everyone talks about sex, no one talks about death. So, maybe we can just talk about both.
That's it. We'll find the middle ground somewhere.
Right?
We're charting uncharted territory here. But I wonder also whether it's worth mentioning, I think one of the standouts because this idea of attracting young people to have conversations about death and end of life issues is something that people seem to be struggling with around the globe in all our different communities. It's a shared challenge that different groups have. One of the things that I think has really made a difference for the Young Ambassador Program is this idea of inviting young people in and allowing them to play to their strengths and play to their passions and get involved in aspects of the projects and work that we're doing that light their fire in a way that is meaningful for them. So the way that the projects and things that Eve might get involved with might be slightly different to Brennan's and so on. So it's not putting all young people through a sausage factory of end-of-life projects. I think that that's a real strength of the group. Engage on people's own terms.
Yeah. I think also, Danielle, to that, but I think also what's really important with that as well is that there's a lot of people that are really, really smart and have done a ton of work in these spaces before we have come along, and it's really important to respect them. And it's really important to respect the words that they're using and the messages that they're sending out. So make sure that you engage with a group. If you're going to talk about big subjects to big audiences, make sure you have your facts right, because there's a ton of people that have done a ton of work, as I said, to move the dial for voluntary assisted dying in a certain direction. And you don't want to jeopardize that.
That's a good point.
We're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Correct.
And I suppose me a year ago was probably in a similar position to where Tara was kind of just describing. In terms of, I had big ideas, I had big opinions, and I had, I wanted the whole of Australia to, have a conversation with themselves about, VAD, end of life, all that sort of stuff. And people have put, decades of work, they've dedicated their lives to, pushing the needle in that right way. And, like you said, we've got the opportunity to bounce off the top of that. We just got to make sure that we're not kicking it in the shins.
Totally. Love that.
It can very quickly undo a lot of hard work.
Well, we're continuing on over half a century of work with Dying with Dignity Victoria alone. I'm happy you like that, Tara. So we're continuing on so much work. And even with the perspective that we come from, being not only Australians, but also, I guess, a Western POV from Oceania as well, can be so different compared to around the world. But to continue to further the work that we're doing and to further not only voluntary assisted dying, but also just general knowledge. Everyone has the right to knowledge, and everyone has the right to unbiased knowledge. And that's something I'll probably mention later. But it's because we're continuing that, we're furthering that, so that way those who will come after us hopefully will be able to continue pushing the dial just a little bit further into equitable access for all.
I love it. I wrote myself some notes when I was thinking about this topic, and the really, I mean, it sounds grand, but the unparalleled success that Dying with Dignity Victoria has had in setting up a Young Ambassador program, because it is a major, major accomplishment, and the quality of the Young Ambassadors is amazing. And it's something that people struggle with in various communities around the globe. And I was thinking, what are the key takeaways here? And I think, Tara, you, in our prep for this, you were talking about this: join your village for a young person, join your village, find your people. You don't have to walk this path alone. Your perspective is valued and needed, regardless of what that is. And you will and are capable of making enormous positive ripples in this space just by showing up and being a part of these communities. So when none of us are alone, we all have these strengths. We can all have this conversation and make a positive difference. So find your village, join a Dying with Dignity organisation or a sister organisation. There are many incredible organisations working in this space. Takeaway: find your village.
Yeah, and World Right to Die Day is obviously going to have a ton of different promotions out there for different things. You know, don't do it alone, because that's really boring.
I would say to the many, yes, one, don't do it alone, and to the many organisations who might be listening to this thinking, oh, let's get our young ambassadors. Fair warning, what we expected and what we got as an organisation from board perspective. So I'll let you in on a little secret. What we expected from the Young Ambassador program was a group of young, enthusiastic people with lived experience to share their stories. We thought that there might be a focus on voluntary assisted dying, and that these young ambassadors would provide subject matter expertise to the board to inform our work. What we got: passion, 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 strong views, unbridled by the legacy of the organisation in the best possible way. So there were no battle scars. It was just this freshness and curiosity, like, well, why can't we work with that organisation? Why can't we do that? Why is that not possible? The breadth and depth of expertise and experiences, from nephrologists to policymakers, to people in aged care, to people studying nursing, just the depth and breadth of expertise and experiences in this Young Ambassador group is phenomenal. And each Young Ambassador contributes something really unique and is incredibly valued. I think we've more than quadrupled the diversity of the population. I think now we are representing different communities. We've got people with different religious backgrounds and beliefs. We've got all sorts of people from rural and regional areas. I think that the reflection of our community is better reflected now in our Young Ambassador program, and we love that. And so it's growing rapidly.
I can't do the other heart thing that everyone else does.
No, I have to do
it.
So diversity
doesn't work.
True diversity and inclusion. We love that. So we're bringing different different communities and ideas in. I think that there is a strong injection of creativity, innovation, zest, and Brennan, I appreciate your honesty and in being open about the zest and wishes when you came in, and I was very much the same. And I think that that's a blessing because it brings in energy. And then also, the more you know you don't know. And so then it's this folding in with the decades of expertise that some of the original members are bringing, that folds in. So it's a really unique experience. And I think the board, the members, the community, and the Young Ambassadors are all learning and growing as we go, as we learn from each other, and there's deep respect. It has opened up, no question, new opportunities for partnerships, new ways of tackling old problems, where the Young Ambassador Group is less constrained by what has worked in the past. So I think the Young Ambassador program has changed our world and the world in which we play enormously in an incredibly positive and profound way that we didn't quite understand when it started.
And it might be a little bit exhausting. I'm kidding.
So my takeaway for those listening is, wow, when you invite young people to the table and listen to them and allow them to follow their passions and strengths in ways that are meaningful to them, they will make waves in incredible spaces. So brace yourself.
Yes.
So as an example of some of the things that the young ambassadors have been up to, Tara, maybe you can take us on a bit of a round table tour of just some of the things that the team has been up to.
Yeah, sure. So we've had some really incredible projects with the YAs. I mean, we are only quite young still. We're only like a year or two, like a couple of years old. So we now have a YAs on the board, which is amazing. We're also attending national conferences about things like voluntary assisted dying and also palliative care. I was lucky enough to be in a conference earlier this year in Brisbane, and my question was the first question to be asked for the entire conference. And it was around how are young people being treated or cared for differently from a VAD perspective because they are young and medical practitioners want to hang on to that hope that there might be a cure or they might live. And everyone was kind of like, oh, I wasn't expecting that question. Who asked that question? So we've been able to get into some of those different conferences and those types of things. We've also been able to do a lot of media. We've been interviewed by a number of radio stations around our perspectives on voluntary assisted dying, not only as young people, but as representatives of Dying with Dignity Victoria. We've also been able to attend a number of interviews or meetings with members of government to help advocate for changes to legislation. So we've had a lot of experiences on top of all of those as well, but they're just a few of them that we've certainly done in the last probably 18 months to 24 months. Yeah.
A lot has been accomplished. Just an open question to the team. What has individually been your proudest, most memorable moment as a young ambassador? It feels like we've been together a lot longer than we have, but I think that's a case of because so much has been done. But Eve, maybe I'll pick on you first, and Brennan, I'm coming for you, and then Tara, I'll come to you. What is your proudest, most memorable moment as a young ambassador with Dying with Dignity Victoria?
Well, I was going to say something really mushy and go meeting a group of like-minded young people. And well, but genuinely, I think it's a bit of pride comes with it, certainly. To have actually met a group of like-minded young people who are amazing, even if we will talk about bowel screening, but to have met a group of people who, because going into being involved with the Young Ambassadors for Dying with Dignity Victoria, I had no idea what I was going to expect. And for, I guess, to see not only the fruit of our labour, but also to get to know everyone individually and see the passion, the zest, if we're going to reuse words, that's gone into each and every single person's journey and anything regarding advocacy for voluntary assisted dying. I've been so appreciative to have been a part of it, to remain a part of it, and to continue being a part of it. I definitely do carry a bit of pride, and a bit of pride that I've been able to find this group and to have said that, and to continue to say that I am a part of this group. It's immense. That's a huge point of pride for me. But then there's also other aspects that I know for myself that I've done individually, not only with collectively with the recent parliamentary event that we had in September this year at Victorian State Parliament, speaking to about 36 politicians from around the state, which was absolutely amazing to be able to speak to them directly about the need for reform under current legislation, which for me personally is a huge focus point with my advocacy work for voluntary assisted dying, to have been able to speak to them, to be able to show what we as Dying with Dignity Victoria, but also in part as the Young Ambassadors for Dying with Dignity Victoria, have been able to put together, and the message that we're able to bring forward. A huge sense of pride to have been a part of that. But then also, again, personally, I've done a media interview with The Guardian Australia. I have done a podcast interview with Voices from Voluntary Assisted Dying. an Australian podcast series based in Adelaide. What else? Another radio interview, as Tara mentioned. I've been able to have my voice read out in federal parliament by my local federal representative, which was huge in itself, to be able to speak about voluntary assisted dying and to be able to put that in national perspective of what's currently happening here in Victoria, but also the reality of death and dying and what voluntary assisted dying may provide to some people around the country. And then, yeah, but then also going back to being able to say that I'm a part of this group and to be a small drop in the ocean, really, of all the work that's come before us, and to be able to continue that work. I think all of those points for me personally are a huge, huge sense of pride. And every day, I wish my mother would be able to see this, because I know she would be proud of me, and I know she wasn't able to publicly advocate for herself when she was alive because she was too sick. So in part, I'm continuing on her story and her passion and her energy as well. And just any of those points, a huge, huge point of pride for me, certainly.
I love that. Thank you so much, Eve. And if anyone's listening to this this webinar and they're thinking, should I join the Young Ambassadors? What would you say to them before I throw to Brennan?
Do it. Again, joining, I had absolutely no idea what I was stepping into. I had sort of my perspective that I was coming from, but since then I've been able to learn of so many different perspectives. Again, not only about voluntary assisted dying, but also about the generalization around end of life and the need for advancement with end of life care, and the need for further knowledge and the breakdown of taboos regarding one's end of life and regarding illness. I'd say if it's a way that you're able to take action by joining a Young Ambassador group, do it if you're able to. Even if you can't, to be able to stay in the loop, to be able to open conversations and to, again, break down the doors of taboo and allow for the flow of information and flow of knowledge. I think just it's an amazing opportunity, and it's amazing to be a part of. So I definitely would encourage people, because it also allows you to gain perspectives that otherwise you wouldn't have gained, or perspectives that you would have gained potentially from a biased point of view.
Thank you, Eve. Brennan, as one of our newest recruits, tell us what moment sticks out for you as a moment that you're proud of, that's memorable for you. And also, like I asked Eve, what would you say to people potentially considering joining the Young Ambassador group?
Yeah, it's been, honestly, the whole experience has been fascinating and memorable in itself. I also signed on to witness people's VAD applications, and I went and visited a lady. I was local, so it was convenient. And that was, I don't know, that to be part of someone's journey to kind of achieving the death, or even just having the choice that they have expressed that they want. That was, I don't know, that was really memorable. But also, yeah, recently the event that we had in Parliament House in Victoria, in terms of, I guess, reviewing the legislation, just being able to sort of, I don't know, be a very small cog in a very big machine, to sort of see how the inner workings of, I guess, legislative change and, you know, real sort of, I don't know, I guess it's part of the democratic process, and to be sort of engaged in that, in whatever way you can. I think it's I don't know, it's a very liberating experience, and it really it ties you back to, I guess, yeah, what so many people have sort of worked towards keeping, particularly in our society. Yeah, I think so. It's if you're on the fence, I don't know. There's nothing to be on the fence about. I'd highly recommend engaging. If this is your topic to be passionate about, engage in it in a functional way where, you know, real change is on the table. And I think you'd be surprised what you can sort of achieve and become involved in.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Brennan. Tara, part of the OG group.
Yeah, OG. One of my proudest moments was making our president, Jane, speechless. And I don't mean that from a wicked perspective. I mean that from the perspective of, as young ambassadors, our job is to challenge and look at things from a different way. And I think that when you can achieve that, we've accomplished what we're trying to do. I think if we were looking at people that aren't sure if they want to be part of a young ambassador group, maybe just, join and sit in the background and watch. And there may also be groups in your country that don't have young ambassadors, but have groups that are really passionate about voluntary assisted dying and also different avenues for death. Just join them and be that younger person that's in the background chirping, saying, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Or, I'm following these young ambassadors in Australia and these are the things that they're doing. You can be a young ambassador without other young people in your ambassador group. Yeah. So just be you, be curious, be passionate, and be sensitive to the fact that you are going into a journey that some people find really, really uncomfortable, but you can be that beacon of light that will help other people find their way to understand that death doesn't have to be scary and that we all need to face it because it's guaranteed. So just get into it. And, if you're not sure, ring us and we'll talk to you about it.
Yeah.
It's not hard. Just ask a question.
There is, I think for people, again, I'm thinking about all the people from all the different corners of the world that are tuning into this, regardless of age or how old you're feeling. Don't assume that young people are not interested in this topic. Don't assume that they don't have a lot of opinions about this. Don't assume that their motivators are the same as more mature members of our community. We're different beings. We've found through our engagement of young ambassadors that there's a particular, that things like imagery, design, diversity, flexibility of tools and resources are particularly important for young people. So both engaging them and designing resources for them on both sides. Young people, as Brennan, gave the example, there are young people's perspective on more mature issues and young people's perspective on young issues. So don't just assume that it's a one-way street. I think that there's an opportunity for young people to know that there's a tribe out there. Join your tribe, make space, and then step back and allow young people, to find their strengths and find their voice in this space and be open-minded and make sure you've had your Wheaties. This conversation has opened up some interest in Dying with Dignity Victoria, the Young Ambassador Program, the many facets that we've talked about today. If you or anyone you know would like to get in touch with us, please visit our website or email us at ya@dwd.org.au. To our incredible panel of young ambassadors, to Tara and Eve and Brennan for joining me today, and for listeners who have had us in their homes and offices around the world today, thank you. Every step that we take together brings us closer to a world where people can make end-of-life choices that reflect their values, where individuals and families feel supported, and where dying with dignity is a right, not a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you.